happy birthday song?
Karen, do you know something I don't know?
It's your birthday.
Oh, is it
a
my
happy birthday
birthday?
song. Like Stevie Wonder.
Are you sure I'm not singing this? Okay.
I hope-
Hello, everybody. Hello, Karen. How you doing?
I'm excellent.
Karen-
I feel good. It feels like my birthday.
Oh, it is your birthday. Frank
I'm so
Triantos.
happy for you.
Oh, thank you. You know, Karen, you took me out on my birthday, my pre-birthday gift. Karen, I was her guest Saturday night in New York to see Uncle Charlie Wilson. Thank you, Karen.
Oh, man, I thought that was a secret. Now people are going to think that. All right, you're welcome. It was my pleasure. I couldn't think of anybody else I would enjoy that evening with. So thank you for
Well, I hope
gracing
I
me.
didn't disappoint you.
No, you were awesome. Well, he was awesome, but, you were awesome, too.
Well, thank you. And Frank Triantos, how are you, brother?
Oh, perfect. Happy birthday, Armstrong.
Thank you. And one of my favorite people in the world has been with me longer than sometimes myself. Achilles West, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for that introduction. I'm like a prenatal vitamin, huh?
And also to the best producer, money can afford, Anthony Carr, how are you?
Marvelous, sir, marvelous. Happy birthday.
And let me give a shout out to Nancy McPhail, my wonderful executive producer. And let me just say this. Let me set up, because listen, this is a night on my birthday that you want to listen. Because something happened today. Something happened, and our shows are never planned. No one knows what the topic is, including me, until we go live, actually. But today, a very dear friend of mine sent me an article. And the article read, Gun guy Larry Pratt wonders why our blacks can't just sing and be happy like the African ones. First off, let's just go to the tape. I want you to listen to this, audience, 1-866-801-8255. Listen to this. I want to go to the tape. Anthony, take us to the tape of our guest tonight, Larry Pratt. Go to the tape.
I've seen in this country are from Africa. Africa. Intelligent men with PhDs. Not that a PhD means much, because you know what they say that stands for nowadays very often.
And
But
generally, the African from Africa is a very pro-American person, a very happy person. I know several, and they just always happy with a joke, a pleasant smile on their face, and they clearly don't identify with the surliness that's all too frequently the attitude of their fellow African Americans here. So it's and they're very conservative politically. Like the country of Ghana, it's still illegal to commit an abortion. It's illegal to be homosexual. Very conservative social laws and very free market oriented as well.
If anybody listened to this, and you've seen these stories 1,000 times, Karen, Frank, and Achilles, you'd say, who made that racist comment? That person must not like black people. I mean, how do these people, he's president of the Gun Owners of America, what in the world is going on in this country? Have we not made progress? And I thought about it. Larry is someone I've known for over 20 years. I picked up the phone and I called Larry and I said, what in the world is it you're saying? He had no idea what I was talking about. Everybody was talking about Larry and his racist comments, but nobody talked to Larry. They made a determination about Larry. And you know what I said, Larry? Why don't you, because this is going to be big, it's going to be controversial, and you're going to be in the hot seat. Why don't you just come on the show tonight with our great guests, Karen, Frank, and Achilles, and we're going to sit down and have a conversation. We're going to educate and teach each other and learn from each other. We're going to learn why some would find what you said offensive. We're also going to learn what you were trying to say that you really did not convey. And as you go forward as a man of influence, a man I know of integrity and fairness, we're going to help you, and you're going to help us stop this destroying people when they make silly statements like this, and empower you with knowledge, wisdom, and an understanding that you may not have. And so we invited you on not to beat you down, not to call you a racist, but to have a dialogue. And in order to have that dialogue, what we want you to do is talk about what you're trying to convey and why, and then we're going to challenge you in some instances, criticize you, and then hopefully we can embrace you before the show is over. So tell us what you were trying to convey.
Well, Armstrong, thank you very much for actually going right to me. That's something that's all too uncommon in our time, and I commend you for that, and thank you for this opportunity to appear before your audience. When I started the comments, I was making that favorable reference to the African societies that I knew a little bit about, where they had some social, even economic features that were superior to our own country. And I know some of these things from some of the Africans that I've known over the years who have emigrated here and are living here. I see one of them fairly often in the building where I work, and he is a politically conservative guy, has seen me on television, and appreciates the work that Gun Owners of America is doing. And the whole idea that I was putting across was that there are cultural differences among some of the African Americans who live in this country compared to the culture that I'm familiar with a little bit through the eyes of some of these African friends from their own countries. And that when somebody from Africa has come here, when I've seen them, they have a can-do attitude. Man, I'm in America. This is really great stuff. I've made it, and that's something that I think not just among blacks in our country, but also among whites as well. And I think it's partly the problem that we have with our schools that are teaching an entitlement mentality that everybody's a victim, and that's certainly not anything to be countenanced.
Karen, we'll start with you.
You know, when I heard those comments, Mr. Pratt, the first thing that came to mind was this notion that, you know, our slaves are happy because they sing in the fields while they're picking cotton, and that kind of propaganda spread around the world to kind of, excuse slavery because look, the slaves are happy, they're in the field singing. And you know, when you said that, it just kind of struck me, and it reminded me what I read in Frederick Douglass's book, his autobiography, kind of denouncing the same notion. You know, just because you see somebody who can come to this country, by the way, you mentioned Ghana, which has a 31% poverty rate, so the vast majority of people that you're talking to aren't living in that squalor. They are people who are here, you know, with the hope, as many immigrants, to find a better life, but to disparage the how many millions of African Americans who live here and say that we're surly, as if you know all of us, and as if we walk around with the attitude.
Well, you know, I didn't say all. I was careful to say many. Obviously,
that's still a lot. I mean,
it's still a lot. Of course it is.
You know, we're both from Jersey, and I just what struck me, I was like, you're a man with a degree in political science. I can't believe that, you know, someone so intelligent would make such a comment, and I just wondered if there was another agenda.
But
like,
you know,
what
Karen,
is your real point
Karen,
in bringing this up?
This is Achille, Karen. I think that Larry was being honest with about his experience, and like anyone, our impression of the world is colored by our experience. Okay, and I went to an international junior high school and high school here in Washington, D.C., the Washington International School, and I rubbed shoulders with people from all over the world. And I could much the same say that whites from Europe, that whites in the United States could take a page out of the book of whites from Europe, that, you know, they were a lot more welcoming and warm and friendly and looked you in your eye and, you know, these types of things. But my experience has been broader than just that. So working in corporate America, having a business, being from Washington and working with all types of people, I've come to realize that just that. People are people, and they're colored by their experiences.
Which leads me to what I'm getting at. What's the purpose of saying this? You know, at the end of the day, everyone, you know, you're a very intelligent man. You know, you're not ignorant. Maybe in this area you are, and this is why we're here today to enlighten you. But is there an agenda here? Like, what is the point in even bringing up that, you know, many African Americans are surly, as if they don't have a right to be surly after, you know, a couple of centuries of slavery, Jim Crow, et cetera, fighting for equality on these shores. The surliness that you speak to is not born out of just genetics. There's something going on in this country and this culture of inequality that we need to address. And where do you fall on that?
Well, I think I stated in my initial remarks that what I see is the problem is that there's, especially in the schools, and I guess it's somewhat in the media as well, and in the entertainment media, that the country's full of victims, and not just among African Americans either, but immigrants to this country. And I'm married to an immigrant, and I'm fluent in Spanish, and I have some probably a lot more experience with the Hispanic population, and this is a world that I live in, and these are the observations that I have had. So I think that to say that I've encountered some people that had an attitude when I wasn't treating them that way is to brand me, a white guy, as a representative of something that was very evil in this country at one time, and to say that I'm part of that. Well, there's a biblical concept that the sons are not guilty of the sins of the father.
But Larry, have you
Actually,
ever met?
quite
Have
the
you ever
opposite.
met somebody who
Quite
have you
the
ever met a white person who had an attitude?
Sure.
So what do you attribute that to?
Probably in part some of their schooling as well.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just the way we are.
Right. Well, I think that we're more so a product of our environment, our home environments, than we are our schooling, first of all, because I went to an international school, but I came home to an African-American family. My father graduated at the top of his class from Harvard. My mom stopped going to college at one point so that she could stay home and take care of the family as a homemaker. I'm an African-American. We're religious. Very conservative values. They've been married my entire life. They had no children out of wedlock. They paid their taxes. They're honest citizens. And the majority of people that I know, my family and the people that I associate with, are that way. And I think that has more to do with class and education than it does to do with skin color. And much the same way, many of the Africans who you see here stateside are not the Africans that are dirt poor living in the swamps. Oftentimes, they actually went through a revolution in their country after colonial rule. They went through a lot of corruption, and many of them, their plane ticket over here was paid for out of corruption. And I'm not saying all of them, but in a lot of cases, I have a good friend whose father led the war in South Sudan against the North Sudan for years. For over 20 years, he led that war. And when I met Mabior, who's from South Sudan, he was going to George Washington University. He didn't have a scholarship. His father was paying completely cash, paying in cash. My family couldn't do that. But at the same time, he didn't have the primary schooling that I had, and I was able to help him out a lot. But I think that it has more to do with people having chips on their shoulder, people having stereotypes of each other, which is exactly what you gave, was a stereotype. And where and how do we get beyond these stereotypes?
Well, I think
You're saying
also
what
it's
I was
about the first
saying,
generation
which
immigrant.
is that this is cultural, and that's I think a valid point.
Yeah, and Larry,
No, but I think it goes
you're
beyond
talking about
that.
is first generation immigrant having the willingness to take advantage of opportunity and the desire to get here. I have a friend from Africa, Morahina, and he worked for 6 years in Africa, and it sounds like a very bad situation to me. I'm a white guy, Frank, by the way. And
Why do you just say you're a white guy? Why do you
well, maybe
disclaim?
your audience doesn't know. They just
Is it important though?
Triantos.
Does it become? But it's important.
No, but in
this conversation it is.
Is this conversation?
So.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Just fair. Call us. We see you. We're gonna get to you. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah,
Continue.
he worked for 6 years to get over here. His ticket here, and then he cashed in. He was explaining it to me. It was very complicated, but he ended up with like $2,000 for 6 years worth of labor and the right to be in America. And he's appreciative of that because it gives him the opportunity. And I think first generation immigrants to America are, there's more millionaires in that range of people than there are in any other American folks right now. New
Good point.
millionaires.
That's a very
the
good point.
importance
Yeah.
of tonight to our guests,
That's a very good
to our regular guests, to our listeners, is not to condemn Larry and not to condemn any. It is to
no, not
listen.
at all.
We need to learn why people feel this way instead of the media making people out to be a monster. What we need to do through media to be responsible, we need to change and make people better. And when they become better, we become better, and the world around us become better. Because just because the media condemn and call somebody a racist, their hearts become hardened. You don't change to make them better. This dialogue tonight is to talk to Larry, get into his mind the way he thinks, and maybe you can have an impact. Let's go to Sean in New York. Sean, thank you for your patience. You're on the air.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. Hey, I think the whole thing is absolutely ridiculous, and it is very offensive that anybody can feel that way. Whether you subscribe that to blacks, Africans, or African Americans, or even whites. The point is that every time we talk about black Americans, we always think that we're all the same, and this is how we all are. He didn't compare white people to Europeans. He didn't say Europeans are perceived to be more proper than white Americans, but no, he used it as a negative and wants to subscribe it to black people, and that's a problem. The man obviously has a preconceived notion of what we're like, and no, you can't change somebody's mind like that. That's the way he's been culturally conditioned to believe.
Well, I was
Sean,
quite
thank you for
careful
calling.
not to say
Larry,
all.
Larry, go ahead. Larry, go ahead.
I was quite careful not to say all because I'm aware that you can easily overgeneralize, and that's just not going to be accurate.
Yeah, but it goes beyond that. We've been overgeneralizing race in this country for quite some time, and I think, if we're going to have a real dialogue about it tonight, which I think we should, because, clearly you didn't mean to be offensive is what I'm getting, but clearly you were offensive, and the fact that, you can defend it even in the face of everyone on this, show telling you that we're offended by that, it kind of where we are.
You were offended, but maybe that's something you need to look at yourself and say,
I'm fine.
Am I too easily offended?
Hold on. Much like Achilles, my parents were married 47 years till my father, God rest his soul, passed away. I grew up, my parents did pay full ride for me to go to Drew University. So I don't come out of this victim situation, but I'm very well aware of the history in this country. And to deny that, and to deny that there's certain depictions from Birth of a Nation to today of African Americans, everybody on this call right now has a narrative that flies in the face of everything that you're saying about black people.
Well, if you're not
going to acknowledge that,
then we see the history of this country as still the reality of today, then I don't understand what you're talking about.
Well, the problem, I think, lays in that America does an excellent job of hiding their white, non-educated, poor, and an equally good job of pushing this image of blacks being poor and uneducated through the media and through the depictions of blacks in the media. So, for instance, if we go a few hours from here to parts of West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and what have you, you will see a big difference between those areas of the country and Washington, D.C. In Washington, we kind of live in a bubble. But growing up in Washington, one thing that I have become adept at discerning is the difference between someone who, regardless of their race, grew up in suburban America from middle-class background, and somebody who was the first person in their family to go to college and who is in Washington, D.C. for a good job and to better their lives and to better themselves. Now, unfortunately, in urban areas, after the Civil Rights Movement, we had a lot of blacks who settled in urban areas in order to try to find a better life for themselves and provide a better life for their kids. And there's been a number of dynamics which in some cases have made it possible for some to do very well, and other cases have made it least possible for others to do so well. But the whole time, those people have been on full blast in the media. Any problem that those people have has been made a black problem and has not been seen as an American problem.
Jarrell in Ohio, Louisiana, I'm sorry. Thank you for your patience. You're on the air. Go ahead, Jarrell.
Yeah, I just wonder, Larry, how old are you?
How old am I?
Yeah.
71.
Okay, so at the end of the day, what this all comes down to, and I've come to realize this, and I hate to say it, but so that means you grew up during a time when it was, blacks, due to federal and state law, were prevented from participating in free commerce, owning businesses, you grew up in that time. That's what you saw. So that's why your mind is the way it is. In your most formative years of your adult life, you grew up with it, so we're not going to be able to change your attitude. But at the end of the day, you want to know why we pissed off?
As a Christian, I can't look at people through the skin. The Apostle Paul says that we're all one blood.
Gerald, you're not going anywhere. Let him respond. Let him respond.
The Apostle Paul told us that we're all one blood, that there's no difference among the races. He was very explicit about that. And furthermore, that it's a sin to view people any other way. If you look at them racially, you're committing a sin biblically.
But you in your interview specifically talked about blacks, and that was based on skin.
I talked about many. Many, but I was aware that there are obviously another good number that are not.
Larry, let me do this. Let Jarrell finish because he did hold patiently. Let him make his point because you're going to be with us for the full hour. Go ahead, Jarrell.
Founders wrote a lot of Christian stuff down, but none of that followed. They were killing and robbing. There's a lot of Christian stuff written down, so don't come talking to me about this Christian stuff. That don't mean nothing. The Ku Klux Klans were Christian. They were doing things. They was in the name of the church. So what are you talking about? I don't want to hear that.
It's very explicit.
Jarrell, thank you for calling and listening to the show.
Of discriminating against people based on their skin. It's just the New Testament couldn't make it any plainer than it has. And in my Hispanic congregation, where we speak Spanish, we've got people of all colors from all over this hemisphere. So the idea that somehow I'm insensitive to this issue based on color or my background, I reject that. I think you're stereotyping me.
Well, even the notion of a Hispanic, which was a term crafted by Nixon in the 70s to further divide and conquer, the notion that there is such a race as Hispanic, even that's racist. If you want to,
Nosotros somos hispanos is what they will tell you. We're all Hispanics.
No, there's no such thing. And I understand the need for people who speak Spanish to want to separate from being black or whatever. I get that. I get it.
Well,
but
it's a cultural reference. It's not a color reference because Hispanics come in all colors.
No, Hispanic
it
does not exist. Hispanics
they also come in all education levels, in all classes. Some of them come to this country with money in their pocket. And
let's take a time out. We're going to take a break. Larry, Karen, Achilles. We're going to take a break. Frank, Larry, we're going to take a break. Sharon, we're going to come straight back to you. This is important dialogue. I'm not going to interrupt it unless they're talking over each other. I think this dialogue is necessary because it's so rare we get to talk to each other. And that's what's important tonight. We'll be back. Armstrong.